never thought I'd find myself here, spilling my guts about my marriage to strangers on the internet, but here I am. My name is Mike, I'm 36, and I've been married to Jessica for the past 11 years. Our relationship started off like a romantic comedy. We met at a friend's wedding, shared a few drinks, and just clicked. Everything felt perfect. We were the couple everyone envied. But as the years went by, things changed, and not for the better. The initial signs of trouble were subtle. Jessica, who was once vibrant and full of life, started to act differently. She became distant, often glued to her phone, rolled her eyes at my jokes, and one day she casually mentioned, "You just don't make me feel young anymore." It hit me hard. What did that even mean? I thought we were in this together. I tried to brush it off, rationalizing her behavior as stress from work. She was a project manager at a tech firm and often came home late, exhausted. I was supportive. I cooked dinner, picked up the chores, and encouraged her to take time for herself. But the more I tried to be a good husband, the more she drifted away. It felt like I was watching my wife slip through my fingers like water. Then there were the little things. She started dressing differently, wearing outfits that were more revealing and less like the Jessica I knew. One Friday night, I came home to find her getting ready for a girls' night out. Her hair was styled, makeup on point, and she even wore that little black dress I loved. I had to admit she looked stunning, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She was going out too often, returning home at dawn, reeking of perfume I didn't recognize. I tried talking to her about it, but every time I brought it up, she brushed me off. "You're being paranoid, Mike. I'm just having fun. It's good for me." It was like she was throwing a party while I was left to clean up the mess of our relationship. The real kicker came one Saturday while I was cleaning out the garage. I found an old box of photos and letters from our early days together. It made me nostalgic, thinking about how good things used to be, but as I flipped through the contents, I stumbled upon an envelope. It was addressed to Jessica, but the sender's name was unfamiliar. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. Inside was a series of flirty notes, filled with inside jokes and references I didn't understand. The final note was the most crushing. "I can't wait to see you again, my beautiful girl. You make me feel alive." My heart sank. I reread it, hoping I was misinterpreting it somehow, but the truth was slapping me in the face. My wife was cheating on me. At that moment, my world shattered. I felt sick to my stomach, like I had stepped off a cliff and was plummeting into a bottomless pit. I didn't know what to do. My mind raced with thoughts of betrayal and anger. I took a deep breath and tried to process what I had discovered. That night, I confronted her when she got home. She was clearly drunk, giggling and swaying as she stumbled through the door. I couldn't contain my rage. "Jessica, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling. She stopped mid-laugh, her expression shifting to confusion. I held the note in my hand, feeling it burn like a brand against my palm. "What's that?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "It's a love letter from someone you seem to care about a little too much." I shot back, my heart racing. She rolled her eyes, trying to brush it off. "Oh, come on, it's just a joke between friends. You're overreacting." I wanted to scream, to shake her and make her understand the gravity of what she had done. But instead, I just stood there, waiting for the truth to pour out of her mouth. "This is nothing. You know how I get when I drink." She tried to defend herself, but her words felt hollow. And just like that, my once loving wife became this defensive, bitchy stranger. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by someone who could so easily lie to my face. I was furious, heartbroken, and utterly lost. As I stood there, I felt like I was in a haze, emotions swirling around me. I didn't know what to do next. Did I want to fight for our marriage, or was it already too late? The weight of betrayal hung heavy in the air between us, and I realized I would have to make some hard choices moving forward. After that explosive confrontation, I felt like I was in a surreal dream, one where the ground was shifting beneath my feet and nothing made sense anymore. Jessica, with her half-hearted excuses and drunken giggles, didn't take me seriously. I left the living room, heart pounding, feeling like I might explode. I was angry, but more than that, I was deeply hurt. I loved this woman, and watching her dismiss my heartache so casually was like having a knife twisted in my gut. I spent the night on the couch, tossing and turning as images of her with someone else invaded my mind. Who was this guy? How long had it been going on? Why wasn't I enough for her anymore? I replayed every moment we shared, questioning if every hug, every kiss had been a lie. The silence in our home was deafening, punctuated only by my racing thoughts. The next day, a strange calm settled over me. I had to gather my thoughts, regain some control over this chaos. I started to think about what my next step should be. The only thing I was sure of was that I couldn't stay in a relationship built on lies. I needed evidence, something concrete that would force Jessica to confront the reality of her actions. So, I decided to investigate. Over the next few weeks, I turned into a detective. I kept a low profile, observing Jessica and her behaviors closely. I noticed things like her phone constantly buzzing with messages that she quickly dismissed when I walked into the room. I started to piece together a timeline of her girls' nights. They were often followed by late-night texts and calls. It was infuriating to see how she was living two lives, one with me, where she was the dutiful wife, and the other with whoever had ensnared her affections. One evening, I decided to follow her when she said she was going to grab drinks with friends. My heart raced as I drove behind her, trying to stay inconspicuous. She pulled into a bar across town, one I never would have guessed she frequented. I parked a little distance away and watched as she walked in, laughing with a group of women. But then, a familiar face appeared. It was Tom, a guy from her office who had always been overly friendly with her. I felt a sickening twist in my stomach as I watched them interact. They were close, too close. I watched as Tom leaned in, whispering something that made her laugh, her eyes sparkling with a joy I hadn't seen in months. They moved to a booth in the back, away from prying eyes, and that's when I saw it. He reached for her hand and she let him. It was a moment that felt like a punch to the gut. My wife was holding hands with another man, and the sight sent my mind spiraling into a dark place. I couldn't bear to watch. I turned and drove home, my heart pounding with a mix of betrayal and rage. Once I was home, I began pacing around the living room, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I was seething. How could she do this to me? I had given her everything, and she was out there flaunting our marriage in the face of someone else. Something inside me snapped. I needed to confront her again, but this time I wouldn't back down. A few hours later, Jessica returned home, her laughter echoing through the house. I stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, waiting for her to notice me. When she did, her smile faded. "Mike, what's wrong?" "Nothing much, just thinking about how you spent your night," I said, my voice steady though my heart raced. "Did you have fun with Tom?" She froze, her eyes widening in shock. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, playing innocent. "Don't play games with me, Jess. I saw you. I followed you to the bar. I saw you holding hands with him." Her face turned pale as reality crashed down on her. "You're being ridiculous. We were just having fun." "Fun? Is that what you call betraying your husband? Holding hands like some lovesick teenager? You can lie to me all you want, but I know the truth now," I said, my voice rising. She looked cornered, and for the first time I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "Mike, please, it wasn't like that. You're overreacting. I didn't mean to hurt you. Tom is just a friend." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool amidst the whirlwind of emotions inside me. "A friend who you share intimate moments with. A friend who makes you feel young again. If he makes you feel so alive, then why are you still here?" Her cheeks flushed and she opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. A silence fell, heavy and suffocating. I could see her scrambling for excuses, but I had already made my decision. I was done with the lies and deceit. "Jessica, you need to really think about what you want. Because right now, I can't be your husband and watch you play games with my heart. I deserve better than this," I said, feeling a mixture of sadness and resolve. This was it. I had to take control of my life, even if it meant facing the painful reality of our marriage crumbling. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to be a pawn in her little game any longer. It was time to fight back, but in my own way. In the days following that heated confrontation, I felt a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. I was angry, sad, and most of all, confused. My relationship with Jessica had once felt solid, built on trust and love, but now it was all crumbling around me. I felt like a stranger in my own home, haunted by the echoes of what used to be, and the knowledge of what she'd done weighed heavily on my heart. The atmosphere in the house was tense. Jessica tried to act as if everything was normal, throwing out casual remarks and attempting to engage me in conversations about mundane topics. But I couldn't bring myself to respond. I was done pretending. Every time she smiled or laughed, it felt like a slap in the face. How could she act as if nothing had happened? I wanted to scream, to make her understand the depth of my pain, but I knew that wouldn't help. I needed to find a way to regain control of my life. As I spiraled into my thoughts, my mind drifted to the idea of revenge. I didn't want to stoop to her level, but there was a burning desire inside me to make her feel the way I felt. I wanted her to understand the weight of her betrayal. I began to think of ways to show her what life without me would be like, and it fueled my determination. I decided that if she wanted to feel young and free, I'd let her experience it, alone. I started making my own plans, rediscovering things that brought me joy. I reconnected with old friends, immersed myself in hobbies I had put aside, and focused on my career. I began to feel a sense of liberation, even in the midst of chaos. One evening, while browsing social media, I came across a local bar hosting a singles night. It was an idea I had thought about before but never pursued. I decided to go, not just to have fun, but to show Jessica that I could also thrive without her. I got dressed and headed out, my heart racing with a mix of nerves and excitement. When I arrived at the bar, it was packed with people eager to mingle. I took a deep breath and pushed through the crowd. The atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses. I ordered a drink and took a seat at the bar, keeping my eyes open for potential connections. As the night wore on, I chatted with several women, sharing stories and laughter. I even caught the eye of an attractive brunette who seemed equally interested. We shared a few drinks, and it felt good to be wanted again, to be reminded that I was still desirable even after everything I had been through. Meanwhile, I glanced around the bar and saw Jessica walk in, her eyes scanning the room. She looked stunning as always, dressed in a tight-fitting top that accentuated her figure. I felt a rush of adrenaline. Was she here to find me? I didn't know, and frankly, I didn't care. I was determined to enjoy myself. When she spotted me, her face twisted into a mix of surprise and irritation. I could see her jaw tighten as she recognized that I was not alone. She marched over, her eyes flashing with anger. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice a low hiss. "Just enjoying myself, Jess. Thought you'd like that," I shot back, a smirk playing on my lips. "Are you serious right now? You think this is funny?" she snapped, crossing her arms defensively. I shrugged. "You said you wanted to feel young again, right? I'm just taking a page from your book." Her eyes narrowed, and I could see the realization dawning on her. I was no longer the passive husband who would let her walk all over me. I was ready to stand my ground. I gestured towards the brunette sitting beside me, who offered a friendly smile. "This is Sarah. We were just talking." Jessica's expression darkened, and I could feel the tension crackling in the air. "You're just going to throw this in my face? You think it's that easy?" I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the moment. "It's not easy, Jess, but it seems like you've made your choice, so I'm making mine." She opened her mouth to respond, but then paused, as if reconsidering her next words. The anger in her eyes softened for a brief moment, replaced by something that resembled regret. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then what did you mean?" I asked, the bitterness creeping back into my tone. "Did you mean to destroy everything we built together? Because that what it feels like." The tension hung between us as if time had frozen, and I could see her wrestling with the weight of her choices. She turned to leave, her shoulders slumped, and for a brief moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But then I remembered the nights alone, the lies, and the betrayal. As she walked away, I felt a strange sense of empowerment wash over me. I had taken control of my life, and though it felt like a long road ahead, I was determined to rebuild myself. The pain was still there, but now I was no longer a victim. I was ready to embrace my newfound freedom, ready to show Jessica that if she wanted to live a life filled with thrills, she'd have to do it without me. That night, I returned home feeling lighter, a hint of a smile on my face. I was still heartbroken, still hurting, but I had taken the first step in reclaiming my life. I knew I couldn't let her have the power to control my emotions any longer. I was on a path to discovering who I was outside of her, and no matter how difficult the journey would be, I was ready to face it head-on. The days turned into weeks, and life began to take on a different rhythm. Jessica was still living in the house, but the dynamic had shifted dramatically. I had drawn a line in the sand, and she seemed to sense it. The air was thick with tension, but I was determined not to let her actions dictate my mood any longer. I was focusing on myself, rediscovering interests I had neglected, and spending time with friends who truly valued me. I started going to the gym regularly, feeling my strength returning, not just physically but mentally. I even took up painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I found a local class and poured my emotions onto the canvas, channeling my heartbreak into art. Each stroke of the brush felt liberating, a way to express the chaos inside me without uttering a single word. Jessica, on the other hand, was still trying to hold onto the semblance of our old life. She would occasionally peek into my world, asking about my day or making awkward attempts at conversation. But every time she did, I felt a mix of anger and pity. She was trying to regain a sense of normalcy, but all I could see was her desperation to hold onto something that was already lost. One evening, as I was working on a painting, she walked into the room unannounced, a hesitant smile on her face. "What are you working on?" she asked, her tone surprisingly soft. I glanced at her and quickly turned my attention back to the canvas. "Just something to keep me occupied," I replied, keeping my voice neutral, not wanting to engage in small talk. She moved closer, peering over my shoulder. "It looks really nice," she said, and for a moment I could almost believe she meant it. But the deeper part of me knew she was trying to reconnect in her own way, perhaps feeling a pang of regret for what she had lost. "Thanks," I replied, not looking up. "It's just a hobby." There was a pause, and I could feel the weight of her unspoken thoughts hanging in the air. "I've been thinking about us," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I turned to face her, my heart racing. "What exactly have you been thinking?" "I know I messed up," she admitted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I don't want to lose you, Mike. I want to fix this." The sincerity in her voice pierced through me like a knife. Part of me wanted to believe her, to hope that things could go back to the way they once were. But another part of me screamed to remember the betrayal, the lies that had shattered my trust. "I don't know if it can be fixed, Jess," I said, my voice steady but my heart was torn. "You've broken something that was once unbreakable. It's not just about saying you're sorry." "I know, I don't want to lose you. I realize now how much you mean to me," she implored, stepping closer. But the more she spoke, the more guarded I became. "What does that even mean?" I asked, my voice rising. "Are you saying this because you truly feel it, or just because you see me moving on? You've got to understand that I can't just forget." Her face fell, and I could see the realization of her actions wash over her. "I never wanted to hurt you, Mike. I was caught up in my own issues and thought that being with Tom would help me escape. I realize now that I was wrong." I took a deep breath, trying to process the mess of emotions swirling inside me. "You need to understand that I'm not just going to jump back in. It's going to take time, if it happens at all. Trust doesn't just come back because you say it does." Her eyes filled with tears, and I felt a pang of empathy. This was the woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, but she had shattered that life with her choices. "I get that," she said softly. "I just hope we could start with a fresh slate." "Fresh slate? It doesn't work that way. I need to know you're serious about wanting to change," I replied, my voice firm. "And I can't do that if you're still in touch with Tom." She nodded solemnly, her expression shifting from desperation to contemplation. "I'll cut ties, I promise. I want to prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve." Her words felt empty, but a small part of me clung to the hope that she was sincere. "Proving it takes time, Jess. It's not just about saying things. Actions speak louder than words," I said, trying to keep my expectations in check. "I understand," she replied. "I'll do whatever it takes." I could see the determination in her eyes, but I couldn't shake off the nagging doubt. The road ahead would be long and painful, and I wasn't sure if I had the strength to endure it. But I knew I didn't want to rush into anything either. I needed to give myself space to heal while also gauging whether she was truly committed to repairing what was broken. As she left the room, I sat down and stared at my half-finished painting, lost in thought. Could I actually forgive her? Could we rebuild a relationship that was shattered by betrayal? I didn't have the answers yet, but I was no longer the passive husband. I was reclaiming my life, taking it back one brush stroke at a time. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to face it. No matter the outcome, I would stand my ground, and for the first time in a long while, I felt empowered to chart my own course, whether that meant rebuilding our marriage or moving forward without her. The following weeks were a delicate dance of emotions. Jessica made a genuine effort to demonstrate her commitment to change. She started attending therapy, both individually and then suggested couples therapy, which I hesitantly agreed to. I wanted to hold her accountable while also keeping an open mind. It felt like a fragile truce, where each of us was trying to navigate the aftermath of betrayal. In therapy, she opened up about her insecurities, about feeling unappreciated and lost in our marriage. I listened, trying to understand her perspective, even though it was difficult to reconcile those feelings with the choices she made. It felt like she was searching for validation in all the wrong places, and I couldn't help but wonder what had led her to seek comfort in another man. Still, I held on to hope. Maybe this was the turning point we needed. I found myself cautiously optimistic, even as the scars of the past were still fresh. I began to pay attention to the little details, the small gestures she made, like cooking dinner, leaving sweet notes around the house, and even planning outings for us. It felt like a faint echo of the romance we once shared. One evening, while we were sitting on the couch, I noticed a change in her demeanor. She was more open, more vulnerable, sharing her fears about our relationship and how deeply she regretted her actions. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were having a real conversation, one that didn't revolve around blame or anger. "Mike," she said softly, looking directly into my eyes, "I know I messed up and I'm genuinely trying to be better. I've realized how much I took for granted. I just want a chance to show you that I can be the wife you deserve." I studied her face, searching for any sign of insincerity. "It's going to take time, Jess. I can't just flip a switch and forget what happened," I replied, my voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. "I know," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "but I'm willing to fight for us. I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." It was a moment filled with raw honesty, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. But as much as I wanted to believe her, the fear of being hurt again loomed large in my mind. I wanted to protect myself, to safeguard my heart from any further pain. Over the next few weeks, we continued to make progress in therapy. We were learning to communicate better, navigating the rough waters of our relationship, but the shadow of her infidelity still lingered. I was haunted by the thought of her with Tom, the intimate moments they shared while I was left in the dark. One weekend, Jessica suggested we take a trip to the beach, a place we used to love visiting together. I was hesitant, unsure if spending so much time together would provoke emotions I wasn't ready to confront. But ultimately, I agreed, hoping the change of scenery might help us both. As we drove down the coast, the sun setting behind us, I felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The drive was filled with playful banter, a hint of the fun we used to have. For a moment, it felt like we were reclaiming a piece of our past. The ocean breeze swirled through the car, and I found myself laughing at her silly jokes. When we finally arrived at the beach, the waves crashing on the shore felt like a balm for my soul. We set up our spot, the sound of the ocean washing over us, and I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this trip could mark a new beginning for us. We spent the day basking in the sun, playing in the water and reminiscing about our favorite beach memories. Jessica even brought up the time we got caught in a sudden rainstorm, laughing as she recounted the chaos of us running for cover. For a brief moment, I felt a warmth spreading in my chest, the kind that reminded me of why I fell in love with her in the first place. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, we sat on a blanket, sipping wine and watching the waves. Jessica turned to me, her expression earnest. "I know it's going to take time to heal, but I want you to know I'm here for the long haul. I'll do everything to show you that I can be trusted again." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "I appreciate that, Jess, but I need to see it in your actions, not just hear it. Trust is something that takes time to rebuild." "I understand," she replied softly, her eyes glistening with sincerity. But just as I was beginning to feel the warmth of hope, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and my heart sank. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize, and as I opened it, my stomach twisted. "Hey, Jessica, just thinking about you. Let's catch up soon." "Tom," the message felt like a dagger plunging into my chest. I looked up at Jessica, and the shock on my face must have been evident. "Who is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Jessica's face fell as she realized what I had seen. "Mike, wait, it's not what you think." "Then explain it to me, Jess." "Because it sure looks like Tom isn't out of the picture." Her eyes widened with panic, and I could see her scrambling to find the right words. "I swear I haven't spoken to him in weeks. I didn't even know this message was coming. I thought I blocked him." "Blocked him? It doesn't matter. You told me that you were cutting ties. How can I believe anything you say now?" My voice rose, filled with hurt and disbelief. "I'm so sorry. I thought I was done with him. I didn't want to hurt you again, I promise." She pleaded, her voice trembling. The anger coursed through me, raging like a wildfire. I felt betrayed all over again, and in that moment, all the progress we had made seemed to shatter like glass. "If you were serious about us, you wouldn't have let him back in your life at all." Tears streamed down her face, and I could see the genuine fear in her eyes. "I'll fix this, Mike, I promise. Please don't give up on me." But as I stared at her, I felt the walls I had built around my heart start to rise once more. I didn't know if I could trust her again. The anguish of her infidelity was still fresh, and now it felt like a cruel joke. "Maybe I need to take some time to think," I said, my voice heavy with uncertainty. "I can't keep going back and forth like this." As I looked out at the waves crashing against the shore, I realized I was at a crossroads. I had to decide whether to continue fighting for a relationship that felt increasingly unstable or to finally let go and reclaim my own life. In that moment, the weight of uncertainty settled over me, and I knew I was facing the hardest decision yet. The drive home from the beach was excruciatingly silent, each mile stretching out like an hour. Jessica sat beside me, her eyes fixed on the window, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. I could practically feel the tension radiating from her, both of us grappling with the fallout of that last moment. My heart felt heavy, the betrayal fresh, and now I was faced with the daunting reality of our situation. As we pulled into the driveway, I found myself hesitating before stepping out of the car. I was at a breaking point, teetering on the edge of a decision that would forever alter the course of my life. Jessica turned to me, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mike, I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to prove to you that I can be better." I looked at her, searching for any semblance of the woman I once loved, the partner who had stood by me through thick and thin. "It's not just about being sorry anymore, Jess. I need to see real change, consistency, honesty, and commitment. Right now, it feels like I can't trust anything you say." "I understand," she replied, tears brimming in her eyes. "And I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Just give me a chance." That's when I realized that I had already given her so many chances. Trust was a fragile thing, and she had shattered it. I took a deep breath, my thoughts swirling. I had spent weeks working on myself, rediscovering my passions and focusing on my happiness. But the truth was that every time I tried to envision a future with her, the image was marred by her betrayal. "Jessica," I started, my voice trembling with emotion, "I need to be honest with you. I don't think I can continue this relationship. I've been trying to convince myself that we could work through this, but every time I look at you, I remember what you did, what you chose to do." Her face fell, and I could see the realization washing over her. "But Mike, we've made progress. I've been trying. I can change." "Trying isn't enough when trust is gone," I said, my heart breaking as I spoke. "I can't keep going back and forth between hope and despair. I need to protect myself, and that means stepping away. I think it's best for both of us if we take some time apart." The silence between us felt unbearably heavy. I watched as the tears streamed down her face, and it gutted me to see her in such pain. But deep inside, I felt a sense of relief. I had finally taken control of my life and I was no longer willing to let someone else dictate my happiness. "I'll move out," she said quietly, her voice hoarse. "I'll give you space. I get it. I just wish things could be different." "I do too," I replied, my own voice breaking. "But wishing won't change what happened. We need to be honest about where we are." For the next few days, we navigated the painful process of separating our lives. I felt like a ghost in my own home, each room echoing with memories of happier times. It was surreal to pack away our life together. The little trinkets and shared moments that had once brought me joy now felt like reminders of a past that was irrevocably changed. Jessica moved in with a friend temporarily, and as she packed her things, I could see the hurt and regret etched on her face. It wasn't the way I had envisioned things ending, but it felt like the only option left. We had tried, but the damage was done, and I couldn't ignore the gut feeling that told me staying together would only prolong the inevitable pain. The days turned into weeks, and I found solace in the space I had created for myself. I threw myself into my work, reconnected with friends, and focused on my art. Each stroke of the brush felt cathartic, a way to express the tumult of emotions I had been carrying. I began to feel lighter, more in control of my life, and I cherished the newfound freedom. One evening, as I stood in front of my easel, I received a message from Jessica. It was short but poignant. "I hope you're finding peace, Mike. I'm really sorry for everything. I wish you the best." I stared at the screen, my heart heavy but my resolve strong. I responded with a simple, "Thank you. I wish you the same." That was it. We both needed to move forward, and while there was a part of me that still mourned the loss of what we had, I knew that I had to look ahead. I had learned hard lessons about love, trust, and the importance of protecting oneself. No one deserves to feel like a pawn in someone else's game. As I continued to paint and fill my life with new experiences, I learned to embrace the uncertainty of the future. I knew I was capable of finding happiness again, but it would be on my terms this time. The journey of healing had begun, and I was ready to take the next steps toward reclaiming my life, single and whole. In the end, I realized that sometimes letting go is the most powerful way to love yourself. And while it hurt like hell, it was a lesson I would carry with me into the next chapter of my life.